Daniel, for being on the podcast once again.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. My pleasure, Adam. Yeah.
And thank you for being on the album,
Yeah.
the mission.
Yeah, it's fantastic. No, an honor, and I've really enjoyed listening to it. And as we were just talking about, before we started recording, really enjoy the versatility, all the different styles, the different vocalists you have on there, the different instrumentalists you have on there. And I think your studio is a testament to the sort of why there's so much versatility, because so many different instruments and types of guitars there. So whereas I'm a bit more stuck onto one type of guitar here. So although even with the classical guitar, I do like to explore different types. There's a bit of a rise in playing period, like 19th century guitars, and like the smaller like parlor guitars, that kind of thing. So that's kind of on the rise these days.
So that's your main guitar, this one?
Yeah, I'd say this is one of my main guitars. I tend to play guitars by local makers, made here in Melbourne, actually.
Okay.
So this is by a local maker, Roger Lee, and then I have another one right here, made by Carey Petticini, who's in Mornington.
Oh wow!
It's this one here, really beautiful.
Okay.
Craftsmanship. He makes the rosettes. Yeah, really beautiful instruments. So it's really nice to work with the local makers.
Yeah, for sure.
Like kind of have some dialogue with them and let them know. They always want to know, get some feedback, and it's a really beautiful relationship to work with guitar makers. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, I just got my guitar today for the.
Oh yeah. I saw the picture. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. So is that like a custom made or something? Or?
Yeah, so basically it's a custom made off a Eddie Van Halen Bumblebee, but mine's called the Tiger.
Ah, yeah.
A Richmond supporter in the yellow and black.
Oh, you're a Richmond supporter too. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. That's awesome. It really suits you. I feel like, yeah. Awesome stuff. Add to your collection.
Yeah. Now I've got a reason to do another album now as well.
Yes.
But no, definitely. Hopefully this year, I'd love to do another one with you if you're up for it.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. We can. There's lots of pieces by lots of composers. Where you could take a little excerpt. I mean, one of the most famous ones is the Nokia ringtone. Is actually a piece by Francisco Tárrega. The Grand Valse. Tárrega was very influenced by Chopin, and he transcribed a lot of Chopin's music for the guitar. I've got a couple that I was going to show you, but let me see if I can find this Grand Valse, because pretty much everyone would know it. So here it is. I'll play from the start, and you'll hear the Nokia ringtone coming in. There at the end.
That's the one, yeah.
That became, a very iconic ringtone. Just those 4 bars right there. Oops. There's lots of great kind of iconic classical guitar motives out there. Adelita is really nice. That one, or Lagrima. You could do something epic with that, like tremolo or strumming or whatever, shredding, fast picking, that kind of thing. There's another Chopin piece that's very famous, probably one of his most famous ones. It's a Nocturne, and in some ways it has a similar feel to Cavatina. This one. that's just the opening part there. That's public domain, and that arrangement's public domain.
Okay.
Targa did that arrangement, and it's really beautiful. Towards the end, there's this really cool kind of like little cadenza that he adds into it, where he uses a lot of left hand effects.
Okay.
A lot of slurring, like oops. And then he keeps the left hand slurring while you pluck notes at the same
really
time.
cool.
It's quite, I've never seen anything quite like it. And this was done in the probably in the late 1800s, quite a while ago.
Yeah. Wow.
Guitarists have been exploring effects, for quite a while.
Yeah, it looks really tricky to keep that sound going as well over the top.
Yeah, to get the coordination, it takes a little bit of practice to sort of get it, to do that, and then to put your finger down, and you have to sort of count like the number of slurs you do, try. Yeah. So maybe that could be one. I mean, there's so many. Just Chopin alone, there's quite a lot. There's the funeral march too. It's a little bit of a more serious piece, but up. So that could be a pretty cool, epic introduction to a song as well. I think Chopin and Targa would be good too, because the classical guitar owes so much to him. So it could be cool to do a bit of a tribute to Targa as well. He composed Recuerdos de la Alhambra, this one. So that, and again, could be a really nice one to.
I love that one. That's really good. I never knew who wrote it. So that's great.
That's probably his most famous famous piece, and then Lagrima and the Grand Valse is probably very famous because of that little Nokia ringtone. Another composer that could be worth checking out is Rigondi. Rigondi was a child prodigy. So when he was just a boy, I think I can't remember what age, maybe 7. Something like that. His father, in a similar way to Mozart, his father toured him around Europe to play for, important aristocrats and things like that.
Yep.
And he was a phenomenal guitarist, and his music is just crazy. But he wrote a piece called Introduction in Caprice.
Okay.
You could call him like the Paganini of the guitar. He must have been extraordinary. He wrote that kind of thing. I haven't practiced that for a while, so it's a little rough. And then he goes into passages like. On and on. Like if I show you the score, if you can see, like that's just one page of It's just like that's just one of the I don't know how many pages. So he was writing some crazy guitar music. This is I'll show you a picture of him here as a boy, just really gives you a idea of.
Oh wow!
Right? So can you imagine, that while I was just playing there being played by. So
Crazy.
Yeah, so there was in this period in the 1800s there was this kind of rise of the virtuoso, and we did have some guitar virtuosos. Ragondi, Johann Caspar Merz is another one. Merz was a really great composer.
Yeah.
He transcribed a lot of Schubert's music. I think he transcribed some of Chopin's music too for the guitar.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah. Have you ever played the electric guitar? I mean, like a
barely. Yeah, no, barely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've spent most of my, life playing classical guitar. I have picked up electric guitars every now and again, but I don't really know what to do with one. I use my fingernails, so that's already a little bit weird on the electric guitar, and just the whole sound, the whole sound of it is so different and everything. So
it is.
And the fretboard is completely different, much slimmer, and the action's much lower, and
and like I spoke about on the podcast, a couple of times, it really is, two different instruments. The techniques involved in classical.
I think one of the defining features of the classical guitar is what we do with our right hand, actually. Maybe in some ways more than the left hand. And this is another thing that guitarists from the 1800s were really big on changing the tone color. Because on the classical guitar, you can drastically change the tone color by plucking the strings at different points, right? We say tasto, which means fingerboard, so playing at the fingerboard, and then normal at about the sound hole, and then ponticello, which means bridge in Italian. That's much right. So those are the kind of three extremes. But there's actually a method book that I found from the 1800s where it's a lady guitarist, which is, first of all, that's actually quite unusual for the 1800s to see that. And she outlined 5 different plucking positions on the guitar.
Oh, really?
Not 3. These are the 5 examples that she described.
Okay.
A, B, C, D, E. Yeah. And then this is an example of music, and she's indicating there's 6 bars of music here, and she's indicating a change of plucking position 5 times in 6 bars.
Oh wow!
So you're literally every bar you're changing tone color, which is pretty extreme. So you're starting, example E is right up here on the very extreme of the plucking at the fretboard there.
Yep.
And example D is a little bit closer to the sound hole, getting a little bit louder. And example C is at about the rosette. And then example B is quite close to the bridge. And then back to example D, very sweet and soft. So it's a lot of color. It's almost like orchestrating music. And I know that on the electric guitar, you probably do the same thing, but maybe with using pedals and effects.
Yeah, that's right.
More than, yeah,
exactly. And probably more I'd say it's only really the 2, really, on the electric. More the open end and the palm muting.
Yeah. So open and palm muting. I kind of understand palm muting, but I didn't know, is that something you do, like, can you play extensively while palm muting?
Yeah, so the palm muting rather than that. That type of thing.
That's really cool. Wow, it's very articulate. Yeah, I can see.
But it's only really here or here.
Using those 5 plucking regions can help quite a bit with dynamics. So like generally when you play softer, you can do that here, and then when you play louder, closer to the bridge to get that more powerful sound. So, and again, guitarists of the 1800s were actually talking about that. I've got some quotes. This is Fernando Sor, who's you know, a very well-respected classical composer.
Yep.
So when he desires a mellow and sustained sound, he touches it at 1/8 part of its length from the bridge to make the sound result from a kind of friction and not from a pull. If, on the contrary, I desire louder sound, I touch it nearer the bridge. So even Fernando Sor and Aguado were actually writing about this, that when they play softer, they played closer to the fretboard, and when they played louder, they played closer to the bridge.
Okay.
And then it got to the extreme where they actually talked about imitating orchestral instruments. So this is Fernando Sor as well, talking about imitating the oboe on the guitar. And it's partly how you play, but it's also partly how you arrange the notes, like how you orchestrate the actual notes you're playing.
Yep.
So because here we've got parallel thirds and these articulations, the slurs and the staccatos, the mixed articulation, the thirds, and then playing close to the bridge to get a nasally sound, like an oboe has a bit of a nasally sound. So you get this. Right? It's a really, really cool effect. And then they went on, you know, talking about the flute, how you imitate a flute.
Oh, wow.
I have examples of that. I spend a lot of time studying this.
Yeah.
How you imitate a trumpet. A trumpet's really interesting. You actually get a buzz. You intentionally buzz the sounds.
Yeah.
So to get I think they described it as a sizzle. The string sizzles.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool. There's trumpet, the horn. It's really interesting. Effects with the horn. The harp's really beautiful. If you play really tusto, really close to the fretboard, and then it depends on how the notes are arranged has an effect on that too. So I'm trying to imitate a harp. Part of what I'm doing is not using vibrato as well, because then a harp can't do vibrato. So
Exactly. Yeah.
So that tone, color, plus the way that the notes are arranged, can imitate a harp.
Yeah.
So we're getting all of these different imitations. Drum is a really cool one. There are different ways of getting drum effects, but one is you can get some note, you can get a chord and a drum sound. Sometimes it's called tambura, like that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So orchestral effects is a really interesting one, and it a lot of the times they weren't notated, they weren't indicated in the score. So if you're playing a piece by Fernando Sor or Giuliani or Aguado, sometimes you have to kind of decode it a little bit, and say, is this composer trying to imitate an orchestral instrument? And if so, how can I bring it out? And it makes the music a lot more fun. Because all of these things with dynamics and imitations and tone colors and articulation, all of those ways that we use to help express music, a lot of the times they weren't indicated, they weren't in the notation. So it opens up a lot of possibilities for the guitar. And that's what I meant by, I think with classical guitar, the right hand is, I think, such a defining feature of the style, how we change the color and the dynamics and the kind of touch that we have, that we use, and that kind of thing.
But in saying it though, I mean, with your left hand though, you do have a lot of chordal things where you've got to get that big stretch as well, don't you?
I think, well, I guess with classical music, it's a bit different sometimes to an electric guitar, because I guess if you're playing electric guitar, then you're probably playing in a group a lot of the time. But with a classical guitar, we tend to be very lonely. We were always isolated even before, social social distancing and lockdown and things. We're already pretty isolated. So classical guitar music tends to be all parts condensed into one instrument. You've got your bass, you've got your middle parts, accompaniment, and then you've got your melody all at one time. And that's why you get all these crazy big chord shapes, because you have to do so many different parts. You're playing so many parts at once.
Yeah. How about Romance? That's got a lot of those big stretches, doesn't it?
Spanish Romance. That's got a melody on the top and then this repeating arpeggio. So and that's why we get things like chord shapes like that. And then the full bar comes in. And the stretch, because the melodies, we need to play the chord still, but the melody's got rising up to the D sharp there. So that's one example, and it creates like a very full sound.
Yeah, it does.
Kind of it's like one of our goals. I think maybe singing is always important. When we're playing music, we want this lyrical singing melody to come out, and then I think also this kind of sustain or resonance is really moving.
Yeah,
and it's really satisfying to play on when you're playing something and you're creating this really full. It's kind of like when you get on the piano and you put the sustain pedal down, and it's like it's just something satisfying about that. On the guitar, it's a big challenge, because you have to, always your technique has to be very precise. You have to be always fretting the notes cleanly, and you have to be holding the notes down for as long as you can. If you lift notes too early, if you go like, if you lift the pressure off here and there, just the sustain just dies immediately.
Yeah.
So
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, I always went on that one there, Spanish Romance, when it goes to that key change to the E to the major. Yeah. That's what happens to me on those chords.
In the major, because you get even bigger stretches.
Yeah, the part.
Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was younger, I used to spend literally hours doing exercises like stretching. And things with barring. That kind of thing, just hours of that. And that's how you develop the strength and the control to do things like that, because it goes really against the nature of our hand. To move the fingers so independently is really requires some training to do that.
No, for sure. The other thing with the electric is probably the bends, which you don't.
That's not something we do too much on the classical. So
and I mean vibrato pretty much got on the same, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
So it really added in. Like I was doing sung by Gary Moore today. That was it there? Where you got like the half bends and full bends.
And the vibrato, that's awesome.
But without that vibrato, it still sounds okay, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, to me, it's very much like imitating a voice. When you add the vibrato and the bends and the slides. Sliding is another. I don't know. Do you do a lot of sliding? Like that kind of thing.
Not a lot. But actually on this album, I had one song where I did the how was it?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Sliding and then the pitch bend at the top. Yeah. That's really cool.
And the other thing was the tapping. Where did you do some of that in the classical?
No, it's not something we do on the classical. I don't think it works so well on the classical guitar. There might be some modern compositions that use that effect, but
those type of things.
It's awesome. Wow. Yeah.
But that's really cool. It's great to actually compare the two.
Yeah.
Two different instruments.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people think they're the same, but they're not.
They're
totally not.
Really different. Yeah, they're just about different instruments. Because what you show, with the left hand, I guess we use vibrato, we use slides.
Yep.
But when we talk about, you could classify those as ornaments, and the ornaments that we use on the classical guitar tend to be things like trills and mordants and things like that, where we're going that sort of thing. Which is a very different. It's a whole tradition that seeps, goes back to very early music.
Yeah, now that you said that, that's probably one thing that has come across to my electric playing that I do a lot of in my soloing. If I go, I do a lot of that actually.
Oh, that's awesome! I love it.
Yeah. So there's actually a few songs on the album where I do that.
I guess when you do it that way, that sort of thing is. I do see that on electric guitar, but not when you're staying on one note. Like on the classical guitar, there's a different way of doing a trill as well. It's called a cross string trill. You go like. That kind of thing. You're playing two notes, and then it's this right hand pattern, thumb, ring, index, middle, and you're just repeating that over and over. So there's different, with ornaments. Sometimes there's different ways of playing them, and again, they're not always notated. It'll just say trill in the music, and it's like, well, what do I do that, or do I do that, or do I do that, or do I do that? It's like so many different ways to do it. So,
and again, that gets me thinking as well about another big thing with the classical guitar is really getting that speed up with your fingers too. Like I remember studying Spanish study, the one Asturias. But once it goes into those triplets, that's where I bum out. I just can't get that up to speed.
That's definitely. Again, we're talking about the right hand. Earlier we're talking about color and dynamics, and I think finger picking is another defining feature of the classical guitar that's quite very different to the electric. And I actually compiled a whole book. I called it the 19th Century Arpeggio Bible. And I've found more since I published this, but these are all different arpeggio patterns from different method books.
Oh, wow.
So there's 60 pages of arpeggios by 10 different authors. So you get things like all these is different patterns. One of the most interesting ones is this one here, where it's this really simple two-part theme, melody and a bass. And so on. And then you get, I think, 32 variations, so that you're basically playing the same melody and bass, but with all these different and it keeps on developing and developing. Eventually you get things like
Do the 16ths.
This one's pretty fun here. That sort of thing. It just keeps on developing. You're 25, 26, 27. Something like that.
Yeah. Well, I can do the bass notes for you.
So 32. Oh, it's more than 32. 33. I think it's 36. 35. 36. The 36th one is really cool. So very intricate arpeggio patterns, really defining feature of the guitar. And you can see, I mean, these guys and girls were devoting quite a lot of pages, to arpeggio patterns. And then you see them in pieces of music, just like Spanish Romance. It's using a repeating arpeggio. Asturias. It's basically the pattern would just be that kind of thing. P, thumb, index, middle.
Yep.
Just repeating over and over again.
So it's originally in E, is it, of Asturias?
Originally, I think it's in G minor. Originally on the piano.
Okay.
It was originally composed for the piano. Isaac Albéniz was a really great pianist.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was a great improviser. A lot of his pieces were improvised and then notated. He must have been, phenomenal improviser. That's another skill that, another side to classical guitarists that I'm trying to revive is to I guess embrace creativity a little bit more.
Yep.
And this is another probably very different aspect to. I think if you play the electric guitar, it's just assumed that you're going to write your own songs and improvise and jam and things. When you play the classical guitar, it's like all that stuff it's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to play the notes, learn the notes. And so I'm really trying to revive the idea of composing, arranging, improvising on the classical guitar. And it's what guitarists used to do. If they weren't doing it, we wouldn't be playing their music.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
wouldn't be playing Tarago and Chopin on the guitar and Mertz and all that. So it's a big mission of mine at the moment for the past couple of years. I started some composing workshops, and now it's led to an online school. And through the school, I think we've created over 100 new pieces last year. Yeah,
wow.
For the classical guitar.
That's great. That's really good.
So I'm really really keen on that. So like that's why I was just blown away when you said you started writing the music for the album in June, and then you released it's January now. It's like 6 months to write the songs and record them. That's a really quick. But if you have the goal and you've got the creativity, you can do it. And I've seen similar, like some people who have never composed before. You give them a bit of a framework, a bit of a method to follow, and all of a sudden they're just churning out pieces. I have some people who've written 40 pieces since in a year. It's just incredible. People. I think by nature, we like to create. So it can get a little bit stale, the classical guitar. When you're playing the same pieces everyone else is playing. There's lots of great pieces, but at some point it's nice to also, I think, incorporate some of your own, arrangements maybe, or your own compositions.
Sure. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah. It's called The Creative Classical Guitarist. Actually, it's just to make it really obvious what it's about. And we've just got a community of guitarists from around the world, mostly the UK, Australia, and some from the USA. And we have this year we have 6 hours a week of workshops where we're just talking about creating, studying music.
Okay.
Sometimes we'd look at improvising a little bit,
Yep.
that kind of thing. So, and that's another improvisation I think is very natural for you, right? It's just something you do. It's just not even like
yeah. I mean, usually if I do my gigs, with the band, like I never really play a solo the same. It's just it's all improvised.
Yeah.
Unless it's a set solo, then I have to do that. But most of the times it's just improvised.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, they were great. It's documented that they were great improvisers. Isaac Albéniz, who wrote Asturias, was a great improviser. But today in the classical world, there are great improvisers out there, but it's not a normal. It's a very unusual. So So this is where I think our two worlds can really benefit. Or I guess the classical world can really benefit from what you do on the electric guitar, and just embrace that, because when you look at these method books, there's hundreds of pages of showing you arpeggio studies, scale studies, chord progressions. What I've discovered from looking is like it's almost like a jazz guitar method book. The types of chord exercises you get in all different keys and all different types of chords, and moving chords up and down the fretboard. That was done in the 1800s as well. I've seen things where you get like that kind of thing, and you do up the fretboard, like tonic, dominant, tonic, 1-5-1 sort of thing. That was done in the 1800s. Yeah.
No, it's great to see that. Like I said, the two different sides, and really do it like this in a practical sense rather than just talking about it. It's great.
Yes, I think that's the great thing, just to practice it on the instrument. It's a harmonic instrument, so we've got the ability to play some really beautiful chord progressions, and then that can be ability. Is that something you do? Is that something you've done as part of your training, like practicing scale formulas and chord progressions and things like that? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's the thing I use for my teaching as well. I use the whatever, if you get the chords turn around and then get the arpeggios over the top there, and then change it around.
There you go.
And even with the scales, doing different groupings, and then just get someone to do the G, and then you swap it around. The next person does it, and just move it around the fretboard. Yeah,
that's really cool. And I mean, when you start doing that, it's almost hard not to improvise or compose. You've got those kinds of building blocks, and you keep learning more and more. That's kind of what they're for in a way. I mean, learning the fretboard would be one thing, developing your technique, obviously, but I think primarily it's for creating music. And that's the same with these arpeggio patterns that I was showing you earlier. I don't think they're just intended to be technical exercises. I think they're meant to be like a toolkit for us to use, whether it's through arranging, improvising, or composing.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, thanks very much, Dean. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam.
And I'll catch up with you real soon.
Likewise. All right.
All right, thanks,
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye-bye.